They hunted us like prey until we taught them what fear really feels like. The last human outpost in the Sable Rim had no sunrise, only the black, silent curve of space and the flickering remains of orbital wreckage that once was a fleet. A shattered crescent of Terran steel and blood drifted over the charred remains of Thren 7, the colony that had once housed for 100,000 lives. Commander Elara Kent stood in the observation chamber of Valkyrie's Wound, a retrofitted carrier that now served more as a tomb than a warship. Her left eye was gone, replaced with a crimson prosthetic that still ached from the surgery. Her voice had not spoken aloud in 3 days, not since the last transmission went dead, not since her stopped responding. She hadn't cried, not when the fleets vanished in silence, not when the Predator ships descended like specters over the last free colonies, not even when she watched her brother's cruiser disintegrate under a particle lance, screaming until static claimed his voice. But now, alone, in a whispering dark, Elara gripped the edge of the console so tightly her bones hurt. The Vorkal weren't conquerors. They were erasers. No diplomacy, no demands, no warning, just a cold, clinical purge of every system touched by human breath. Even the peace envoys had vanished. No wreckage, no signal. As if they were swallowed whole, Elara turned toward the holodeck flickering beside her. A red field bloomed across the Sable Rim. One by one, system beacons blinked out. "We're losing faster than we can count," murmured Idris Harlan, her second in command. Entering quietly, Elara didn't look at him, then stopped counting. He paused, his jaw clenched. "The refugees from Daedalus reach. They say the Vorkal don't just kill, they collect." Her eye flicked toward him. Collect what? Brains, neural scans, emotions. They dissect our memories before destroying the body. His voice cracked. "They're not just predators, Elara. They're learning." She closed her eye, not to block out the horror but to hold it in. Every moment they lingered, every second they hesitated. The Vorkal got smarter, hungrier. And the humans got quieter. A klaxon wailed low, sick, almost ashamed. A proximity ping from the outer defense grid. Something had entered the system. No jump signature, no heat trail, just the cold arrival of inevitability. Elara moved without words. Her steps were practiced, not frantic. Fear had passed long ago. This was something else now. The dreadful calm before the last light goes out. On the screen, the enemy emerged, sleek, black, organic. The Vorkal vessel looked like a tear at space itself, rippling with gravity pulses that bent light into whispers. No weapons visible because they didn't need to be. Not for creatures like them. One ship, that's all it took, last time. One to destroy an entire moon habitat. Battle stations, Elara ordered. Harlan blinked. "But we can't win. We're not here to win," she whispered. "We're here to remember who we were." As the ship's systems groaned to life, she touched the small data crystal embedded beneath her collarbone. It pulsed, once an ancient relic from old Earth's final days. She didn't fully understand it. No one did. Only that it was old, dangerous, and forbidden under the Concordance Accords. And it was the last thing the Vorkal hadn't seen. Not yet. She had sworn never to activate it, not unless all hope was lost. But now, as the shadow of the Predator ship eclipsed the stars, Elara finally understood why humanity had hidden this secret, not just from the galaxy, but from themselves. Because some truths don't protect you, they change everything. And somewhere inside the crystal, humanity had buried a truth the galaxy wasn't ready to remember. Asterisk, we thought the Predators had no fear because they had never met a species that remembered. The Vorkal ship loomed in orbit above Thren 7's ghost. Its surface rippled like liquid obsidian, shifting as if it were alive, as if it watched. And inside the command deck of Valkyrie's Wound, Commander Elara Kent stood tall, staring it down through the transparent canopy. Her crew was silent. Not from fear. Fear was a luxury they burned through cycles ago, but because the presence of a Vorkal vessel did something to the mind. It pressed on memory, pulled at thoughts like a predator licking over old wounds. Voices trembled, hands shook. Some soldiers whispered to themselves, not prayers, but memories. Final words, lost names. Elara didn't flinch. Her hand rested on the crystal embedded beneath her collarbone. It pulsed slowly, sensing with her heartbeat faster now. She didn't know what it truly was, only that it was recovered from beneath the Martian catacombs, smuggled off Earth during the collapse, and sealed by the last council of the old human order. A remnant, a relic, a warning. Behind her, Idris Harlan pulled up a tactical overlay. "The Vorkal ship hasn't fired," he said, voice thin. "No drones, no energy bill. It's just watching. They always watch first," she murmured, "and then they strike." "No," Alara turned to him, "then they take." The Vorkal had wiped out dozens of civilizations in the galactic archives, species that had risen, thrived, and vanished with no explanation. It was only when humanity's colonies began falling that the pattern became clear. The predators didn't just kill, they harvested consciousness, emotion, culture. They erased civilizations from the galaxy's memory by extracting their essence and sealing it into some unknowable archive. And now, they had come for the last. Free voice in the sable rimmed dot 3 decks below, in the data core chamber. Technician Lyra Vance stared at the anomaly pulsing through the AI ray. The ship's logic core Argo had been degrading since the last hyperspace breach, but this was different. "It's like something's awakening inside the command node," she whispered, watching the crystalline matrix react to the proximity of the Vorkal ship. Tendrils of raw data coiled through the encrypted core, fractal logic, blooming in patterns beyond modern computational design. The artifact Hilara's crystal had been connected to the command systems via a secure interface. Now, it pulsed in resonance with the enemy's signals. Something ancient was responding. "I think it's talking back," Lara whispered. "To what?" She didn't know. "Back on the bridge." The Vorkal ship moved. A sliver of space folded open and impossible geometry that broke physics and vision alike. From that wound came a sound not heard, but felt a low, dragging hum like something massive turning in deep water. Then they arrived. Drones. Black, skinless things shaped like dying stars. No engines, no weapons, just shimmering void with tendrils of translucent filament. They descended silently toward Thrun 7's ruins. Alara's breath caught. "They're scanning the graveyard," Harlan said. Again, "No, they're feeding, picking through what's left of us." She knew the pattern. A Vorkal ship never attacked at once. It waited, studied, gathered psychological signatures. It parsed despair. It cataloged loss. Only then did it erase. "How long do we have?" she asked quietly. "Hours," Harlan replied. "Maybe less." She looked at the crew around her. 98. Survivors from 5 different ships, engineers, marines, refugees, orphans, some barely 18, others already broken by war. This wasn't an army. It was a memory. "Patch me through to the fleet net," Alara said. "It's gone," Harlan reminded her. "We're all that's left." "Then patch me through to the damn ship." He hesitated, then nodded. A soft chime sounded. The intercom activated. Her voice, cracked and weary, echoed through every corridor. "This is Commander Alara Ken of the Terran Remnant. If you're hearing this, then you're still alive, and that's enough. I won't tell you we can win. I won't lie to you, like the High Council did. The truth is we're outnumbered, outgunned, and the enemy we face doesn't know fear. But that's their mistake, because they think fear is weakness. They've forgotten what comes after fear, and we're going to remind them. Whatever happens next, fight like someone is watching, because they are, and this time, they'll remember us." The intercom cut out. In the command deck, Idris turned toward her. "Alara, if we use the crystal, there's no telling what it might unleash. The AI core is already unstable." She looked at him, not as a commander but as a human being with nothing left to lose. "Then let it break," she whispered, "because whatever truth we buried in that crystal, it might be the only thing they can't consume." Far above, the Vorkal ship opened again, wider this time. A second vessel emerged from the rift, twice the size, covered in symbols no human had ever seen. A collector-class predator. The kind sent not to hunt, but to end. They thought we had nothing left, but they never understood what one truth can ignite. In the artificial heart of Valkyrie's wound, the core chamber groaned. Light spilled from the crystalline interface, searing arcs of energy dancing across the deck like silent lightning. The artifact Hilara's relic was awake now, and it was hungry. Technician Lyra Vance backed away, shielding her eyes as the ancient core pushed raw data into the ship's crumbling systems. The AI, Argo, tried to compensate, but its voice stuttered, fragmented. Unknown code, Terran signature, incompatible encryption, paradox detected, paradox detected. The holographic displays flashed symbols not seen since the fall of Earth's first orbital dynasty's cuneiform. Glyphs, binary prayers, fragments of languages spoken by long-dead philosophers and rebels. And hidden in the center of that digital storm was a name, Project Nexus, on the bridge. Commander Elara Kent stood motionless as Idris Harlan read the decoded transmissions aloud. Project Nexus initiated during the final days. Human neural convergence prototype. Objective. Encode survival. Not in weapons, but in memory. His voice dropped. Elara, this isn't a weapon. It's a mind. She stared into the swirling symbols. It's not just ours. Idris looked confused. What do you mean? She turned to him, a spark of realization in her synthetic eye. This crystal, it holds the thoughts, the instincts, the will of thousands, scientists, tacticians, revolutionaries. They knew Earth would fall, Idris, so they didn't try to save themselves. They saved what we are. Project Nexus wasn't meant to fight. It was meant to survive. Not in ships or stone, but in the part of humanity no enemy could destroy. Its memory, its truth. Elara straightened. Link it to the tactical systems, all of them. Idris hesitated. You don't know what it will do. She turned, her voice iron. Neither do they. The Vorkal Collector-class vessel drifted closer. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply unfolded. Great obsidian petals opened like the mouth of a dying god, revealing a pulsating core of crimson light, hundreds of thousands of neural threads, vibrating with the screams of species long extinct. It wasn't a weapon. It was a memory harvester. They hadn't come to fight. They'd come to finish the human story. Forever. Back aboard Valkyries wound. The ship lurched violently as the AI core sensed to the Nexus crystal. Lights flickered. Systems rebooted. Across the decks, humans stumbled to their feet as something shifted in the air. Elara stood tall on the bridge, broadcast wide-spectrum distress. Not for help, she said. For witnesses. In a hidden communications chamber, signals pulsed outward, across dead systems and silent galaxies, faint and fractured like a beacon from the edge of time. But one by one, others heard it. An old mining colony near the Vega Drift stirred. A rogue research cruiser in the shadow of a pulsar turned toward the signal. On a derelict lunar base, once thought abandoned, a hidden human enclave stared at flickering screens and, remember, they were not alone. Back on the wound, Elara's eyes widened as the ship's systems changed. The AI no longer sounded fractured. It spoke with conviction. Nexus integration complete. Directive accepted. Preserve, protect, defy. The tactical displays came alive. Defensive barriers hummed. Energy nodes rerouted. Hull reinforcements grew like muscle knitting across broken bone. The ship half-ruined. Barely spaceworthy was changing. Elara gave the order. Fire. For the first time in 6 days, a Terran weapon fired in defiance of the dark. The plasma lances streaked through the void. Impossible trajectories guided by an intelligence far older than any code written today. One struck a Vorkal drone mid-maneuver and it shattered. Not dissolved. Not absorbed. Shattered. The Collector-class ship paused. For the first time, it hesitated. And in that moment, the humans on Valkyries wound felt it. Not hope. Not yet. But doubt on the face of a predator. Idris laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Did you see that? It flinched. Elara didn't smile. Her gaze remained locked on the glowing predator vessel. Good. Let it bleed. In the crew quarters, young Marines who had never fired in anger-loaded weapons. Engineers whispered to each other in old Earth languages, refugees' clean gear handed down from dead heroes. They had no reinforcements. No fleet. No future promised. But they had a ship. They had memory. They had Nexus. As the Collector-class ship recoiled and began to emit pulses, more drones, more tendrils. Elara stepped forward. Set course. She said. ID. Her eyes blinked. For where? She turned toward the massive enemy ship. For them, across the galaxy. In listening posts and shattered outposts, whispers spread. Valkyries wound. Once thought destroyed, was alive, broadcasting something impossible. A Terran frequency once lost. Carried on it, a phrase no one had dared say in years. Humanity remembers, and memory is resistance. Asterisk. They weren't prepared for us to remember. They never imagined we'd teach others to remember too. The stars lit up with new fire. Valkyries wound tore forward. Its engines burning with strange pulses, half Terran fusion, half ancient. Technology awakened by the Nexus core. The old carrier didn't move like a warship anymore. It moved like a living thing reborn, streaking toward the Collector-class Vorkal vessel like a revenant wrapped in memory and wrath. On the bridge, Commander Elara Kent stood at full height, her synthetic eye gleaming with fractured data feeds. Across her HUD, The ghostly images of old battles shimmered, tactics drawn from soldiers long dead, strategies buried beneath Earth's dust. Nexus was feeding her the minds of legends, but it came at a cost. Every second the core remained active. It burned hotter through the ship's systems and through Alara's nervous system, too. The Uplink was slowly rewriting her neural patterns, merging command intent with the digital mind stored within. She could feel whispers behind her thoughts: generals, poets, rebels. Idris Harlan turned from his console, his face pale. The Vorkal ship is adapting. Drone output double. Graviton flux is rising. They're preparing a full-scale annihilation sweep. They always retaliate, Alara said. But this time, so do we. Down in the weapons bay, Lara Vance clutched, a wrench in one hand and a pressure injector in the other. The plasma conduits were glowing a bright verging on meltdown, but the tech whispered to herself as she worked, repeating a line she hadn't spoken in years. From dust we rise, from ash we burn brighter. She'd seen it on an old Terran flag once, before her home station was eaten from the inside by a Vorkal neural leech. She hadn't believed it then, but now, as the ship around her surged with ancient fire, she did. They all did. The Vorkal collector opened its maw. A pulse of negative energy rippled out of gravity sink meant to erase mass. Memory, meaning itself. It was more than a weapon. It was annihilation written in physics. Alara braced. Shields now. A barrier erupted around Valkyrie's wound, not energy, not matter. A fractal lattice of encoded memory. Thousands of Terran minds projected by the Nexus core. The wave struck and shattered like a tide against a cliff. But the enemy was not done. Tendrils uncoiled from the Predator ship, each tipped with crystalline paws. They did not fire. They landed, anchoring themselves to the hull. Within seconds, invasive data began flowing inward. Viral code, foreign logic. They were trying to overwrite wound systems, and Nexus with it. They're inside. Lara shouted across the internal comms. They're affecting the core. On the bridge, Idris froze. If they corrupt Nexus, they won't. Alara snapped. She turned toward the interface plug from her neck and drove it deeper into the command cradle. Pain erupted behind her eyes. Her thoughts blurred. The voices of the past screamed. But she pushed deeper. Give me control, she whispered. The AI obeyed. The core surged. For a moment, time fractured. ELA, our A stood on the battlefield of the last orbital. She saw Terran warships breaking the siege of Titan. She felt the fires of Europa's last breath. She heard the last presidents whisper as she signed away Earth's sovereignty to save the stars. Every memory, every loss, every moment where humanity should have died and didn't. And then she came back, on the bridge, bleeding, eyes burning. But she knew what to do. On the lattice pulse. We're not stopping them, we're seeding them. Idris stared. You want to let them take the data? Yes, Alara said. Because this isn't just defense anymore. This is contagion. Across the ship, Nexus adjusted. The memory shield morphed. Instead of resisting, it flowed into the enemy's tendrils, feeding them not static defenses, but infected knowledge. And within that knowledge, emotion. Grief. Defiance. Hope. The Vorkal neural web pulsed violently. Feedback loops screamed across their collector systems. Their central vessel reeled, recoiling like a predator suddenly choking on a poisonous meal. They weren't built to feel. They weren't ready to remember. But Alara wasn't done. Open the signal. All bands. Let everyone hear it. The comms flared across the rim. Drifting satellites and broken stations lit up as Valkyrie's wound broadcast the core message of Project Nexus. Not a call to arms, a reminder to all Terran descendants. You were never erased. You were never forgotten. They feared our weapons, but they never understood our truth. We are memory. We are defiance. We are still here. In the depths of space, somewhere beyond the edges of known galactic trade lanes, an old Terran warship powered up for the first time in 30 years. Its reactor glowed red with rage. On a forgotten moon, survivors of the Vega massacre sobbed as they heard Alara's voice, knowing now they weren't alone. And in the core of the Vorkal collector, something broke. A scream rang out, not audible, but psychic, a realization. They had miscalculated. Humanity did not resist because it was strong. It resisted because it remembered. On the bridge of wound, Idris turned to Alara. They're calling. Reinforcements. Alara smiled through blood and fire. Then let them come. They wanted to erase our history. Instead, they unleashed our evolution. The stars trembled. From beyond the void, The Vorkal reinforcement fleet arrived 9 ships, each the size of a continent, gliding silently into the system like gods. Come to correct a mistake, their forms were pure obsidian, shaped by mathematics that defy gravity and sanity. Light bent around them. Hope withered in their presence. And yet Valkyrie's wound stood unmoving, a single scarred Terran vessel, beneath the shadow of extinction. Its hull flickered with golden lattice patterns, fractal memories, living code. A shield made not of matter or metal, but of mind. Commander Elaraken remained tethered to the Nexus core. Her breath was shallow. Blood trickled from her ears. Every second connected to the core pushed her body closer to collapse, but she would not pull back. Not yet. Idris Harlan stood beside her, the tactical feed glowing like wildfire across his screen. They're forming a convergence pattern, he said, surrounding us, preparing a full nullification cascade. They want Nexus, Alara murmured, but they don't understand. It was never built for us to win. It was built to survive them. His eyes widened. You're going to activate the failsafe, she nodded. Nexus was never a weapon, but it can become one. Down in the core chamber, Lara Vance knelt beside the thrumming artifact. Sparks danced overhead. Heat shimmered across the decks, and in the glow of the crystal, she saw something that didn't belong, a secondary lattice buried deep within the data matrix. A phrase echoed across her screen in dead Terran dialect. Heart of Earth protocol code, legacy. Lara froze. Her fingers trembled. She opened the sequence. What she saw made her whisper a curse and call the bridge. Alara, this isn't just memory storage. It's a Genesis engine. What? The final phase of Nexus. It doesn't just protect what we were. It restores it. A reconstruction of pre-fall Earth's consciousness maps, culture seeds, genetic code, everything. It hit Alara like thunder. Earth hadn't just sealed away minds. It had sealed away its soul. The Vorkal Armada began its descent. Their null cascade formed in spiraling waves, pulling entropy itself into shape, a weapon designed to erase not just ships, but meaning. If it activated, even Nexus would unravel. Alara's vision blurred. The voices of the past pressed in, scientists begging her to choose, warriors roaring defiance, poets whispering hope. All of them layered over her own thoughts, driving her to the edge. Do it, Idris urged. Unleash it. Alara stared at the flickering screen. Activate legacy. It was irreversible. It would burn the Nexus core. It might destroy her mind, but it would send everything, all of humanity's memory, culture, rebellion through a lattice echo, rebroadcast into every system touched by Vorkal spires. A contagion of identity. The enemy wouldn't just face resistance. They'd be infected by humanity's truth. Alara pressed her bloody hand to the panel. Activate legacy. The ship groaned. Lights failed. The core roared. Across space, the Vorkal Armada fired their nullification cascade. It hit Valkyrie's wound dead center. And the ship exploded. Not outward but inward. The singularity of memory collapsed into light. Nexus shattered, not into death but birth. Beams of encoded consciousness, laced with fire and sorrow and joy, erupted from the carrier's ruin and speared into the surrounding ships. Every Vorkal vessel was struck, their spires spasmed. Their minds, once cold, mechanical, predatory, were filled with emotion. The collector ship screamed. Its psionic web COMBULSED. And then, as if caught in a dream, it paused. In the void between stars, a fleet of perfect predators froze. They saw a mother holding her child as the sky fell. They felt the cold boots of a resistance fighter walking. Alone on Europa's ice. They tasted music. They remembered loss. And they did not know what to do. Inside what remained of Wound's core chamber, Lara crawled toward the console. Smoke filled the air. Fire licked the walls. Alara, she shouted into the comm. Are you there? Silence. Commander Ken. Respond. Then, softly, I'm here. Alara emerged from the shattered interface. Her face streaked with blood and light. Her eye pulsing faintly, but her voice was stronger now, clearer, blended. I felt them, she whispered. All of them. The past. The future. I saw everything we were, and everything we could be. She staggered to her feet. IDRIS helped her stand. Behind them, the Vorkal fleet still hung silent. Drones drifting. No signals. No attack. What do we do now? Lara asked. Alara turned to the observation deck. Her reflection flickered. No longer just human. Now we remind them what it means to change. Across the galaxy, Nexus signals spread like wildfire. Terran enclaves activated ancient codes. Forgotten colonies flared to life. Ships once thought lost responded in kind, echoing the legacy signal. A chorus of memory, a defiant hymn across the dark, and on a quiet planet orbiting a red dwarf. An old archive flickered on for the first time in 87 years. It displayed a message in golden text. Asterisk asterisk Earth protocol engaged. Humanity rebooting. Asterisk asterisk. We didn't destroy the predators. We did something far worse. We made them remember what they once were. The silence in the sable rim was deafening. Where once there was fire and fury, now there was stillness. The Vorkal fleet hovered in formation, untouched yet unmoving, as if the transmission of Project Nexus had drained them of purpose. Inside their obsidian vessels, the neural web, cold and pure, was contaminated, polluted by memory, by music, by emotion, by humanity. On the shattered bridge of Valkyries wound. What remained of the command crew worked in the flickering dark. Smoke bled from broken consoles. Whole panels sparked. Half the systems were fried, but the core still pulsed. Alara Ken stood at its center, her hand braced against the broken oopling throne. Her hair was matted with sweat and blood, her breath shallow, but her eyes burned with something beyond life. She was not alone in her mind anymore. She was Nexus now. The signal still spreading, Idris Harlan reported, fingers flying over what was left of the tactical relay. We've got confirmation fragments of the Nexus waveform have reached the proximal line. Resistance pockets are waking up. And the Vorkal? Alara rasped. They haven't moved, not since the pulse. But they're changing. The drones aren't responding to commands. They're thinking for themselves. Lyra Vance's voice crackled over the intercom. One of the collector's ships just shut down its graviton core. Voluntarily. I think it's listening. Alara closed her eyes. This was the edge, the precipice before the fall or the rise. Nexus had torn open the neural net that bound the Vorkal into collective predation. It had infected their purity with memory, consciousness, empathy. For the first time in their long, merciless history, they hesitated. And hesitation was human. Far beyond the system. The legacy signal reached a Terran sleeper arc lost for generations. TNS. Hallowed ember drifted beyond the edge of the perceived line. Its crew, deep in cryo, began to stir. The ship's AI blinked online, driven by ancient command code keyed to a single voice, Alara Ken. Thousands of minds across the dark woke up to a single phrase etched into their pods. It's time to come home. Inside the largest Vorkal ship there, Prime Collector Stormbrood. What Alara didn't know was this. Not all the Vorkal were machines. Long ago, they had been something else. Something alive. Something that felt. But over millennia, they had purged those imperfections, rationalized them away in pursuit of pure evolutionary dominance. They became predators of memory, devourers of meaning, but Nexus had reintroduced the virus of self. Now, the mind of the Prime Collector Unit Theta Zero shuddered in confusion. Old fragments surfaced. Phantom emotions, words from forgotten ages dotted. Remembered a name, not VO or QAL. Valis. A name whispered in dreams now returned. Back aboard wound. Idris turned toward Alara. If we strike now, we can disable them. Their fleet is vulnerable. Alara stared out at the silent giants. And if we strike, we lose the one thing that makes us human. You want to show them mercy? No. She whispered. I want to show them choice. That's what they've never understood. Choice is the root of all rebellion, and if they choose to destroy us now, knowing what we are, then they'll never be gods, only monsters. She stood slowly, her body trembling under the strain of her link to Nexus. Opened a channel. One ship. They're Prime. Idris hesitated. You really think it'll speak? I think it already is. The channel opened. A low, distorted hum filled the air, thousands of frequencies layered atop one another. Then, words broken, uncertain. But there, we do not understand. You are wrong. You are incomplete. Alara stepped forward, steady. No, we're unfinished. That's the difference. You infect, corrupt. You make noise where there should be silence. We remember. That's what noise is. Life. What is the purpose of your pain? To remind us what matters, what we must never become. Silence. Then you are a disease. Alara smiled faintly, then tried to cure us. See what happens. The connection cut. Idris stared at her. Well, we've rattled the cage, she said. Now we find out if the beast inside wants to tear us apart or break free. In the dark, the Vorkal fleet began to move. Not to attack, not yet, but to converge. A signal was building. Lara called it in. They're preparing something massive psionic energy buildup. It's going to hit everything in this sector. Friend and foe. Lara looked up, unblinking. This is it. Idris tensed. What do we do? She turned, her voice calm almost. At peace. We don't run. We don't hide. We stand. Let the galaxy see what it means to carry memory into madness. The crew around her scattered, half-broken took their stations. They were not warriors. They were not saviors. They were the remnant. The last verse of a dying song ready to sing loud enough to echo through time. Above. The Vorkal unleashed. Their final wave. A pulse of light like the breaking of stars. But inside Valkyrie's wound. The Nexus core pulsed once more, shielding its ship with not armor, but identity. And for the first time in their history, the Vorkal faced a species that did not want to win, only to be remembered. They thought survival meant domination. We showed them it meant becoming more than what you were. The pulse struck Valkyrie's wound like a divine hammer. Every hull plate screamed. The stars blurred. Time itself fractured as the Vorkal released their final judgment, not a weapon, but a rewriting of reality. Their psionic blast was designed to strip identity, fracture will, and overwrite civilizations in a single, elegant erasure. But this time, something resisted. Inside the shattered remains of wound, the Nexus core burned like a star. The consciousness of 10,000 live scientists, refugees, rebels, children flared in defiance, not with fire, but with memory, their pain, their songs, their final words. And at the center of it stood Lara Kent, barely breathing, eyes glowing gold with overcurrent, her voice echoing across every speaker, every mind. You will not erase. US, you will not quiet us. You will not make us forget. Because this is who we are, coal and broken dot burning, but still human. Across the sector, dying satellites reactivated. Old Terran ships hidden beneath asteroid fields roared to life. Every listening post, every cryo tomb, every lost vessel that had once touched Earth's dream heard her and answered, fleets forgotten. By time began to move, they had no allegiance left, no command structure, no hope. But they had her voice, and that was enough. In orbit, the Vorkal fleet trembled. The psionic cascade should have devoured wound and everything connected to it. But instead, the transmission was reversed. Not by design, but by will. The Nexus array took the incoming pulse designed to overwrite humanity and turned it into a mirror. The Vorkal were now seeing what they had never faced before, themselves not as gods, not as apex beings, but as what they had once been, before they became collectors of oblivion. Inside the Prime Collector, the entity once known as Theta Zero staggered beneath the flood of data. Flashes of emotion bombarded its core. The Nexus signal wasn't just information, it was reflection. Echoes of Earth's soul bled into its circuits, destabilizing the perfect machine. And buried deep beneath all the code, something whispered, you were like us once, you chose this path, now choose again. Back aboard wound, Lara screamed into the calm. Nexus is going to detonate. The cores at critical entropy were seconds away from total neural collapse. Idris Harlan ran to Alara's side, grabbing her shoulders. You have to disconnect. You'll die with it. Alara looked at him, her voice quiet, but full of something ancient. No, I am it now. She turned back toward the viewport. Stars flickered through fractured glass. The Vorkal armada hovered there, their psionic blast suspended like a question they no longer knew how to finish. Alara raised her voice, one last time broadcasting across every ship, every listening world. This is humanity. We are not your prey. We are not your infection. We are your mirror. And if we die today, we do it knowing the truth has reached you. She smiled faintly. And the truth remembers. The Nexus core surged. All at once, the Vorkal fleet stopped, a single moment of absolute stillness. Then dash movement. The Prime Collector turned away. So did the others. One by one, the great obsidian ships folded space and vanished. No retaliation, no attack, no message. Just withdrawal. The galaxy's most feared predators had seen something in humanity that could neither consume nor destroy, and it terrified them. The moment the last ship vanished, the core collapsed. A wave of white gold light burst. From wound, not an explosion, but a release. The souls of Nexus, the collective memories of a lost Earth, scattered into the stars, not gone, not erased, planted. Across 1,000 systems, humans would awaken with fragments of Nexus inside them. Memories not their own, courage they never earned, grief they never knew, but they would remember. Alara Ken's body collapsed into Idris's arms. She was barely breathing. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her voice was faint like wind across old mountains. "I saw it, Idris. At the end, they were afraid." He nodded, choking on tears. "You showed them who we are." "No," she whispered. "We did." She smiled and closed her eyes. In the days that followed, the remnants of Wound's crew were recovered by rogue Terran fleets. The legacy signal had spread farther than anyone could have imagined. Colonies once divided now stood united. Earth's dream, long thought dead, flickered back to life not as a planet, but as a people. The Vorkal were never seen again in force, but here and there, in the dark corners of the stars, a new kind of ship appeared, black, sleek, silent, not hunting, watching, and sometimes helping in every sector where the Nexus signal passed. One phrase lingered, etched into stone, broadcast from ruins, whispered in sleep. They came to erase us, but we were not written in ink. We were carved in fire. We were never meant to conquer the stars. We were meant to survive them. Years passed, but time could not bury the name Alara Ken. Not in the ruined colonies where her signal was first heard. Not in the drifting wrecks that became shrines. Not in the songs sung quietly by children on cold moons. Not even among the stars where the predators once ruled. The legacy signal lived on. In every human soul that dared to rise again, it echoed not just in voice, but in feeling. A shared ache, a shared defiance, a shared memory of standing alone against the void and not breaking. They called it the Second Awakening. The galaxy was not healed, but it had changed. The Vorkal were no longer hunters. After that day, no world fell to their silence again. Their ships still watched from afar like ghosts, unsure whether they were still monsters or something reborn. They never spoke, never intervened, but sometimes, just before a planet's final hour, a black ship would appear and leave behind light on the rebuilt station New Horizon. Orbiting what was once the Vega ash field, a memorial stood beneath a dome of obsidian. At the center, the partially restored command chair from Valkyrie's wound. Engraved along the arc of the dome was the last full transcript of the legacy signal, Alara Ken's final words. Pilgrims came from every surviving Terran splinter to read them. Even the coldest sectors, long ruled by warlords and prophet, grew quiet beneath that dome, not because they mourned, but because they remembered. Lara Vance became High Technarch of the Reclaimer, a quarter union of humans scattered across more than 50 systems. She carried Alara's torch, guiding new generations to understand what had once been forgotten. That survival was not strength alone, but understanding, connection, and story. Idris Harlan never left the memorial dome. He refused to command another ship, refused to rise in title, but every year, on the anniversary of the signal, he broadcast Alara's final transmission across every Terran frequency. Whether they wanted to hear it or not, most did. Some cried, some knelt, some were inspired to rise up from the mud of shattered worlds, because hope once infected into the stars could no longer be killed. The Nexus C protocol's a phenomenon even its creators hadn't fully understood had taken root, unseen, unnoticed, in the DNA of newborn humans across the galaxy. Fragments of Earth's final voices were encoded, tiny sparks of memory, a song lyric, a battlefield scream, a lullaby from a mother long dead, a name, Ken. Humanity, it turned out, had evolved not with claws, not with technology but with legacy 50. Years after the Battle of the Silent Stars, a child born on the agricultural moon of Trastelfor was asked what he wanted to be. He didn't say a pilot, or a soldier, or a warlord. He said, "I want to be a story, like Alara." The galaxy fractured and bloody became something strange in the centuries that followed. Not peaceful, but not lost. Terran enclaves formed a loose web of worlds called the Memory Chain. Each link a culture, a people, a language saved by the Nexus flame. Some still fought, some healed, some wandered, but all remembered. Even the ones born long after Earth's blue skies had faded into myth still felt something when they looked up at the stars, something human. And on the edge of known space, on a quiet observation deck orbiting a forgotten world, Idris Harlan, older now, slower, stood alone one final time. He pressed one hand to the comms panel. "This is Idris," he said, voice rough with years. Broadcasting the last entry, he looked out at the stars, They used to call us fragile, primitive, divided, a long pause. But they learned. He smiled faintly. Alara was right. It was never about winning. It was about showing them who we are. He flipped the switch, and for the last time, the voice of a lost human echoed across the stars. We were broken, but we were never beaten. We carried memory into madness. We made the silence speak our name. And now, the stars carry us. The end.